Well, hi, Jane.
Hi.
Thanks for coming today. I've got one little bureaucratic thing to take care of, and that is to have you state your name and when you were born and where.
My name's Jane Moore. I was born in Illinois in 1950.
Okay, thanks. Well, Jane, once again, thanks for coming. Your name has come up so many times from my other interviewees of a person to talk to, and I know how involved you've been in the town over the years, so I'm really excited to talk to you. So when did you come to Jerome?
The first time I came was in 1970.
From Illinois?
No, actually, I had been living in California.
Okay.
My ex-husband had an aunt and uncle in Phoenix, and we came up here with them visiting. They knew Colonel Elenius and Inez Kelly, who were Jerome people at the time. And I had an aunt in Tucson who taught on the Tohono O'odham school system, and she'd been there since the 40s and had told me to come to Jerome. And so we sat in the spirit room on a winter day in 1970. The door was open, and my recollection was that there were tumbleweeds blowing down the street, sitting in the bar looking out the door, and I kind of fell in love with the town and was living in California at the time, Southern California, in a really nice place, and just kept thinking about Jerome, and came back in 1972 and stayed.
Wow. Well, may I ask what you were doing professionally in
Well,
California?
I had part-time jobs in two little libraries. I was just sort of a librarian. I didn't have a degree, and I was an art student, had gone to art school in Chicago.
Studying what?
Art?
Yeah, generally or any
Yeah,
specific?
yeah, no,
Okay.
I just wanted to be an artist. And had, been painting and drawing
Okay.
all that time. I loved history. I loved the history of the town, and just fell in love with.
So you didn't really have anything holding you in California that
No,
it
no,
was
I
pretty
realized
easy to pick up and come here.
it was. I realized at the time that, that California probably wasn't the most affordable place.
Right.
And in 1972, houses were fairly inexpensive here. So, people were buying houses for anywhere from $500 to $5,000, or
Yeah.
caretaking houses. And I know the rumor said people were squatting in houses, but for the most part, it seemed like the people that were coming here had a sincere desire to fix up the old houses. And I just really liked the energy that was here at the
Yeah, I
time.
was going to ask you what else appealed to you about
The
it.
people. I know when we first moved here, a lot of us joked that it was a little San Francisco in the desert, and had a really nice family feel. And I loved all the old timers that were here and the history that they had here. Got to know a lot of the old timers that were here, and the new people that were coming. And I know the old timers were fearful of the people that were coming here because they were so different.
Yes.
And really didn't trust maybe the lifestyles. And my ex-husband and I bought the old Copper Star building from Paul Scott, who had an antique shop here.
Now, which one is the Copper Star?
Copper Star is the one that's boarded up right now, that's on the Flatiron block.
Oh, next to,
Yeah.
what's her name?
Janelle Knapp.
Yes.
Yeah, next to that gallery. Roger Holt had a gallery next door to that. Paul Scott had an antique shop in there, and he had advertised that for sale, and we saw it advertised in the paper that it was for sale, and decided to talk to him about buying it, because we had also, my ex and I had been selling antiques
So
just
that's
as a
what you
hobby.
did with that's what
And-
you did with the commercial space.
Well, Paul had the shop full of antiques, collectibles. He also sold jewelry, and we took over his business. We put a small down payment down on the building and paid $150 a month payments on the building. And it was kind of funny too because a lot of the people here in town did not trust us, I don't think, because they thought, oh, they must be rich because they bought a commercial building in town. And at that time, I don't know, there were maybe a handful of shops, 2 bars, 2 restaurants. No, actually 3 if you count the House of Joy. And not a whole lot going on at the time. Verde Valley Art Gallery was here, which seemed sort of like the co-op at the time. It was artists in the Verde Valley had started the gallery, and it was where, well, it was next to the post office.
Right.
In the new State Motor Building, and I worked there.
No, it was Pat Jacobs.
Yeah, that was later on.
She
Yeah,
ran it or something.
she did.
Okay, but it had started before she was involved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It started in
okay.
the '60s.
Oh,
Yeah.
who started that? Do you know?
A group down. Names. I've forgotten a lot of names, but it was a group of artists in the Verde Valley.
And they started in the 60s.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Now, did you live in the building you bought?
We did. We lived in the back. The shop was in the front. A leather worker, I think his name was Mark, and then Glenn Stockton had shops downstairs, and they continued to live downstairs.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to picture that building. Yeah,
It
there
was
is
across
a place
from-
in the back. There's ladders going up to an apartment.
Yeah,
Over
steps.
the candy store.
No, that's the high house. Copper Star, the back of it, the downstairs was a gas station, and they had divided that into 2 little shops, and both Glenn and Mark lived in the backs of the shops. Actually, I think it was, well, before them it was Jeffrey, and I can't remember his last name, but it doesn't matter, lived downstairs, and Glenn and Mark, I think, maybe came later, but they both had shops and lived downstairs.
So you said, I remember coming here when I was 15, 16, 17, and I do remember tumbleweeds.
Yeah, I mean, that's my recollection of sitting in the spirit room and watching it, because it was a windy, cold day. And
Yeah, I
yet
remember,
the door was open.
Like dirt in the gutters.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there wasn't really much going on.
Yeah,
then,
but you figured there was enough to make it as a business?
It was summer business only at that time, which is kind of weird. And in the winter, there wasn't a whole lot to do.
Yeah, compared to now.
And we also got, because we brought in antiques from all over the place and would work on them, and we were also renting the downstairs in the new State Motor where Sally is now.
Oh, okay.
And had that whole place. I did a lot of furniture refinishing and stuff like that down there.
Oh, no kidding. That's a
And-
huge space.
Oh, it was huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had,
How much was that a month? Can I ask?
it was like
Nothing.
25
Really?
bucks a month or
Holy.
something. Will Tift had that before, and he had written a book about Ellis Island. If you look him up, Tifft, and he had left behind some old photos that he used for the Ellis Island book that I still have of gypsies, mainly pictures of gypsies and different characters that
Oh,
had
wow.
come in. Yeah, that was Will Tift was just leaving really when we came.
I've never heard his name
Google him.
being brought up.
Yeah, Google him.
I'll be darned. So
He has
so
some
you-
beautiful books about Ellis Island.
Huh, interesting. It's amazing the people who showed up here in Jerome.
Oh, it is. Well, and there was John Figge and Walter Powell.
Now, I have
Shirley
heard some
Powell.
stories of Mr.
Oh,
Figge.
he was wonderful. There was a woman named Priscilla and John Figge. And John a lot of times would wear his white wig, although he didn't have to, but he had the most beautiful wavy white hair. And they would set up a table in Husband's Alley or in front of Husband's Alley and do tarot cards for people. And there are pictures of that.
Scott
No.
Owens just told me a bunch about that. And the Puff.
Oh, the Poffer Palace.
The Puff Palace.
He had the entire upstairs of the Dykus garage full of, some of them were like 16th, 17th century European and a lot of Dutch. He was from Amsterdam antiques, and it was just mind-blowing, the beautiful. And it was mostly related to kitchen stuff, and he had always wanted to open what he called the Poffer Palace, which was Dutch waffles.
Right.
And I remember he lived downstairs underneath the Dykus garage, and I remember sitting there one time with him having tea, and a tarantula went crawling across his oriental carpet that he had on the dirt floor down there, and he said, "Oh, that's one of my friends." And
He sounds like a character.
And then Walter Powell lived in the high house, and he worked on opals all the time, and oftentimes would walk around town. I remember this one beautiful black opal he had that fit, it was palm-sized black opal, was beautiful, and would show it off to people walking around. And, man, you're really trusting to walk around with that in your hand.
So to switch back to the old jail where Sally is now, you were doing furniture finishing?
Yeah, for the antique shop.
Oh, okay.
Would bring back stuff that needed work and then
Gotcha.
work on it and put it in the shop.
Okay. So how was business?
We felt really wealthy if we made maybe $200 in a week. And if we were feeling particularly wealthy, we're going to go to the Spirit Room or Paul and Jerry's and have a pitcher of beer. Yay.
Were you nervous about survival?
No, because both of us were hard workers and figured that if we worked hard that we'd make our payments and have an okay life.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people were coming to town. Craig and Shirley MacLaine bought the Coppers, or the Cuban Queen, about the same time we came to town. We got to be friends with them. And Richard Martin had the woodworking shop, and eventually they ended up having Emiliano's and renting from us downstairs.
Oh, okay.
And we had the rental downstairs.
Did you feel like you were on the cutting edge of this
Something
little
happening.
secret here in Jerome?
I think we did. And then the pottery shop was across the street, and there were some older artists that had gallery. Well, Jim Rome had his gallery here. Ashley Hostetter had a gallery. Roger Holt had a gallery and would have openings next door. And there were a lot of artists here because it was affordable, I think.
Yeah.
And
do you think they outnumbered the rubber tomahawk type of businesses here? Were there some of those?
Oh yeah, there were. The Shop Unusual.
Oh,
sold that was the shop that had the I think they had a wooden Indian. No, I think it was another shop that had the wooden Indian out front, and then Shop Unusual had dummies sitting in chairs. I don't know whether it was supposed to be like ghosts of people from
Anything
the past.
to get people to come in.
Yeah, and then Leo Sullivan had the copper shop. There may have been the fudge shop. The candy kitchen was run by Paul Gross. There was somebody else before that, but I can't remember. I think Paul came in the early 70s as well.
Who were the people that you got to know and became your friends early on?
Duke Cannell was one. Duke and Dorothy. He was the caretaker, one of the caretakers for the mine. John McMillan.
Oh, is he the one Duke? Is he the one that helped Richard
Yes.
with the water system?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that
John
rings a bell.
McMillan is another character that he lived in the administration building at the time, and I remember sitting on the porch with him out there talking to him, and he talked about coming to Jerome the first time when he was 9 years old, when they had the well, it was a 3-day trip from Prescott, and they had a mule wagon that would bring them down into town from above where the open pit is, and how when he was a 9-year-old kid, he was all excited and wanted to sit in the front of the wagon, and he had something sitting on the porch that he said was a drag that they put on the wagon wheels. And I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of the mules coming down that road, but the drag that they attached to the wheels stopped the wheels from turning, and it was the mules. Then it was like a team of 6 mules or something coming down the hill. And the mules were leaning back so far that they were the ones that were slowing down the wagon, and the wheels weren't turning. But he said everybody in the wagon, because there were bench seats along the wagon, was all sliding
Scrunched
forward. And he said, being a 9-year-old boy, he was like squished flat at the front of the wagon. He said,
what a great
that was
story.
a bad idea.
I've never seen those pictures. Your description is perfect. It's
They
great.
came to Jerome, I think, or Ghosts of Cleopatra Hill, Herb Young's books. There's a picture in there, I think, that shows
Cool.
the wagon coming down the hill. But yeah, that was a good story that John told.
Yeah.
And then,
and who else? Who?
well, Duke Cannell, another funny story. My ex-husband was a chiropractor, but he had worked in steel mills, putting himself through school. So, had been a very hard worker, putting himself through school. But he and I were out walking our dogs out by the open pit, and Duke Cannell drove slowly by us, and my ex had hair out, this curly hair out to here. And Duke pulled up alongside us and said to Dave, my ex, I bet you never worked a day in your life. Because a lot of the old timers thought that the new people were all trust funders.
Okay.
And Dave just kind of looked at him and was like, well, as a matter of fact, I worked in steel mills. Not that different from being a miner.
Right, not that far at all.
No, and then we got to be really good friends. I mean, we just joked about it, and I think it took quite a while before the old timers accepted that the new people really cared about the town and wanted to work to help the town.
Yeah, I've heard that story over and over, the sort of grace period, if you will, where suspicions ran high, but Richard went into that quite a bit about just demonstrating, just over time people recognized that the newcomers were building a stake in the town.
We didn't want to just take.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of small towns are like that, because somebody new moves in and they're kind of looking at you for a couple of years. Or are you going to rip us off? Are you going to be a good neighbor?
I think that's still true today.
Oh, it absolutely
is.
It's
a joke. We all new people come here, and I say, well, there's a 2-year grace period. You get 2 years to decide whether you like being here, and we get 2 years to decide whether we want you to be here.
Right. It's true. We're just going to sit back and watch for a while.
Yeah, we'll see how it unfolds. So you were attracted to the old timers in terms of making friends. They appealed to you, and
absolutely. And my ex actually started a chiropractic business at some point.
Does your ex still live here?
He does. He's in Clarkdale.
Okay.
He just retired.
Alrighty.
Yeah. I did paintings, we sold jewelry, we bought jewelry from a lot of the jewelers that were in town, Jerry Barber, Craig Backrack, Ed and Susan Dowling.
Yeah,
they would come when they needed money, and
right.
Yeah,
well, I've been told about the Jerome became a little bit of a trading hub.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Fern had her store, clothing store.
It seemed like people would bring raw minerals and stones here, and people would trade, and the jewelers seem to keep themselves going by bartering back and forth
Right.
with these different people, which is.
I traded a wood stove, a beautiful old, nice chrome, or actually I had nickel, for a pickup truck that I needed one time.
So how about some of the newcomers? Who did you get to know that were?
Oh, well, the jewelers. I mean, pretty much everybody in town. And I don't know, Dave and I were so busy buying and selling antiques and keeping the shop going that. And we would go to the bar. Oh, well, we always liked to go to the bar when Mick and Oscar and Ed would play. And Craig and Shirley were, like I said, and Richard Martin all came at about the same time. And it's funny how when people come at about the same time and everybody's kind of looking at askance at you, you get to be friends and would sit in the spirit room and, why is nobody talking to us?
Who owned the spirit room back then?
That was Terry and Sue Watt. Well, actually, I think it was Terry's parents maybe that had the place.
And they were old timers, for lack of a better word.
They were.
Okay, so
yeah.
they were a little suspicious too. Huh?
Probably. I don't know. I don't know. We all ended up, I think, becoming friendly. And my ex, because he was a chiropractor, the old timers would, because there were, I think, only 2 doctors in the Verde Valley. So a lot of times they'd come and see Dave before they'd go to a doctor. And, oh, this is bothering me, that's bothering me. And he'd either say, okay, I'll work out your back, or you really need to go see a real doctor. Well, I shouldn't say real doctor, but an MD.
Yeah. Was the spirit room crowded at that time when, let's say, Nick was playing?
Actually, oh yeah, people were dancing in the streets back then too. I mean, a Sunday afternoon when they would be playing, yeah, it would get pretty wild. And there wasn't a whole lot of traffic then, so people could
play
dance
in
in the street. No, they would play, and they had melodramas in there that they would reenact stuff that would happen in town. That was fun too.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
From mining history days or just, current stuff?
No, as I recall, it was things that had happened in town.
Just within the last year or two?
No, just events that had happened in town.
Okay. So that was kind of the genesis of Ghost Walk in a sense.
In a way it was, yeah. The other thing they had mining days. It was DAZE, mining days. And would have mucking contests in the street and stuff like that. I mean, the old timers did fundraisers for the town. There was the CSO, which was the Community Service Organization, and they are the ones that started the home tour. And that was to raise money for the town, because the town was really strapped back then, really strapped. And I'm sure Richard touched on it too about the water system. But that was a turning point for me, and I think it was like 1975 or something. Paul Gross was the mayor and rounded up a bunch of us in town and said, this is serious, we need to go look at the water system, and if you care about the town. And a bunch of us loaded up in the backs of pickup trucks and went out Allen Springs Road and looked at how decrepit and leaking the water line was.
So you got involved with that too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How many of you went out?
Well, it was 3 pickups and probably 6 people apiece in the back of the pickup.
Kidding.
Yeah, I rode in the back of the pickup. My ex, I think Dave Hall was along. I think, I know Richard went, and I can't remember who all else. But I think I was about 24, 25 then. And that's really when I started taking my civic duty seriously.
That was where I was going next.
Another thing about business then, we noticed at the antique shop, as far as our business went, that business wasn't all that great. People would walk to the pottery shop, the Sullivan building, and they didn't want to walk down the hill to across the street where our business was because, we'd have to walk uphill, back up the street. And so they'd turn around there. So and I was also a sign painter. And I made this big sign that was sort of like a district sign that said red light district, and it had a finger pointing down this way so that people would see it and maybe walk down there. And it was painted like the House of Joy sign. And I thought, well, maybe this will bring more business down at this end of the street. And I think Bo and Paula had a little grocery store in the Flatiron at that time, and which was nice, having a little grocery store in town. But I remember Laura Williams, who was the head of the Historical Society at the time. I was out in front of the shop just wondering where all the people were, and she came up to me with her hands on her hips and said, "That was never the red light district, and take that sign down." And, well, I don't want to piss off the old timers here, so I took the sign down, and it was okay. And, that was just enlightening to me that,
this could be
I
an
wanted
issue.
to get along with
Right.
those
But you
people.
also wanted to survive.
Yeah,
Hey, can I this is where I want to go, but I want to back up a little bit. I've got a visual of you guys in the trucks going up. Did you walk the extent of the
Oh, we
of
got
the
out and
lines?
looked. Yeah. And at the time, it was just this old iron pipe that a lot of it was just lying on top of the ground and next to the road, and had these gaping holes in it. And
Was water coming out?
Oh, yeah, in a lot of places. And how it was fixed at the time with inner tubes and baling wire.
Yes.
And at that time, Paul Gross said, we need to do something to fix this. And actually, it went to the voters, and I think it was in 1975, we got a bond, $1 million bond, to replace 14 miles of water line.
That's pretty amazing. Did you get involved with the grant and facilitating that?
Actually, I was more involved. That was the other thing. My ex and Craig McLean and Dave Hall, some of the newcomers had joined the fire department, volunteer fire department. And I had gotten involved. Dave's ex, Debbie, and Peggy Tovry and I started the fire department auxiliary to raise money for the fire department because we saw how little the fire department had. And it was a fire in town. It was Ashley Hostetter's house. It was down in the Bell area, burned down one night.
So it was a wake-up call.
And it was a wake-up call because Shirley and I were sitting on the back porch at the Cuban Queen watching the fire, and it was the middle of the night. And Craig and my ex Dave were on the hose going into the burning, at the doorway of the burning building. And I remember because you could hear voices travel up, and we could hear what they were saying. And Phil was going to turn on the hydrant, hopefully with water, and you could hear him saying that there's no water in the hydrant.
My God.
And here's Dave and Craig getting ready to go, and we saw the lintel in the doorway fall, and just were thinking what a disaster this all was. Jerry Voynick and Jim Rome had gone down there in the fire truck first. There was no ladder on the truck, and Minnie Hostetter had to jump out a second floor window and broke her leg to get out of the burning building.
My God.
Paul Gross had the candy kitchen open all night for the firemen to come and get food and drink, but they were down there all night battling this fire, and the house was lost. And at that time we realized what a
Vulnerable.
sad situation. They had no good turnouts. The fire hose was all full of hose. There was no water in a lot of the fire lines.
Did that issue get addressed with the grant?
Well, the fundraisers for the fire department, bought them stuff, but it took a long time to, and that's, I mean, part of why I got involved in the town, to make sure that we started fixing up a lot of the things that, which were water and sewer lines, and
Yeah.
that's always been my.
In what capacity did you get involved? I mean, were you on council? Were you in?
We started the auxiliary.
What
we
happened
started the
first?
Halloween dances.
Oh.
We silkscreen T-shirts at Phil and Peggy's house in Mexican Town.
Okay,
and
so just fundraising, or organizing.
fundraising for the fire department, and at about that time, I can't remember whether Richard was on the council then, but new people were starting to get on the town council, and that's when we started working on a zoning ordinance, because we saw how vulnerable, we thought we needed something to protect the town, and hopefully that people would fix up buildings in an appropriate way, and the zoning ordinance and the general plan started to be worked on in the council, and I got involved in that. I did some mapping, I did some historic research, and that was in the 70s, late 70s. And
So the Historical Society was underway at that time.
oh, they've been in operation
Yeah,
for
Jerry
quite
Vornick
some
told
time.
me, yeah.
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of that was restoration of buildings too, but
Yeah, there was the Restoration Society at Company Hill to do Company Hill too.
right.
The people that were living up there.
So the Historical Society was more focused on that rather than collecting the history in the archives, at least in the beginning?
Oh yeah, it was to keep what was left of the town, I think.
Right, first things
from
first, I
falling
guess.
down, and a big part of that was having water to fight fires and making buildings safer. I mean, for example, when Dave and I bought the Copper Star, all we had in there for heat was a wood stove, and I remember this was like, I think it was the first year we were there, and Mark and Glenn were downstairs, and it wasn't double wall pipe of the wood stove, and after we had gone to bed, the pipe going through the wall, there was a fire inside the pipe because it was clogged up, and started the wood on fire that the pipe went through on fire. And we smelled smoke in the middle of the night and got up and started throwing buckets of water on the wall, which Mark was sitting on the toilet downstairs in the bottom floor, and all of a sudden we hear this, "Hey, hey!" and all this sooty water was going on his head while he was sitting on the toilet 3 floors down.
Yours was the priority, I think.
But yeah, fires and the lack of safety in town, and people just started thinking that things needed to change a little bit if we're going to preserve the town.
Yeah.
I mean, we saved the building, but it didn't start on fire, but that was a bad thing.
So, so your first steps into being part of the politics of town was just in straight organizing, and then did you catch a bug and want to be involved deeper? Because I know you've got a. Yeah,
I did.
Tell me about that.
I mean, the community spirit, I think, was really good at that time, because I mean, there was just such a really strong family feel, I think, in the town then, and a lot of it was just because everybody was struggling. There was really nobody with a lot of money, and everybody was working really hard to keep their places fixed up and fix up things that were falling down, and I think we joined with the old timers, and they realized that we really cared about the town, and just the community spirit, I think, was fabulous.
Yeah.
And
Had you been involved in politics before?
I had.
Okay, so
My parents were both kind of, I remember going around when I was 11 with political stuff and collecting money for public TV and things. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
So you came by it naturally.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Would start trouble in school for different causes. Yeah. Yeah.
So when was your first run for council?
1982. I decided to run for. I had been on the design review board when it first got started, and realized I really didn't know what I was doing well enough, or didn't feel like I did. I think I got on planning and zoning after that, but I did help with the first general plan and doing the historic research, making phone calls, who lived here, what was this building, it was so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because, that was one of the things I did when I lived. Well, I had horses. I had my horses below the House of Joy. I used to round up cattle with the ranchers that were around here. So I was familiar with all the, Mingus Mountain, and you saw a lot of the old mining history and just the fascination for the people in the Verde Valley, and getting to know the old timers and hearing the history of the town. And I just felt really a part of a community, and I really liked that.
Did you know you were going to stay here?
I did. Yeah. I hoped I was going to
build something,
live here my whole life.
Yeah.
And just have a nice life, and then it would continue to be this really special community.
Yeah.
I think a lot of small towns are, where people know each other. And the nice thing about a small town is you watch your neighbors' kids grow up, and you watch everything evolve, and if you don't behave yourself, everybody knows it. And it's just kind of a check and balance there.
Yes, it is. I totally agree. I often wonder how large a town has to get before that disappears.
Yeah. People watched, the kids would play in the street and felt safe, and you knew one of the parents was keeping an eye on the kids, and
Right.
it was different.
Yeah. Well, it's still, my neighborhood here, I know all my neighbors, and I trust them, and I don't, security is not a prime motivator for me, and that's a wonderful feeling, because I've lived in big cities, and it's not that way at all.
No.
So, so the issues kind of grew, it seems. First it was like take care of the buildings and the essentials, the fire system and all that, but you're watching a town start to grow up a little bit and realizing that we need a plan, we need a functioning government. Richard told me about how he ran the town government with essentially 3 people.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I was on the council, we had town clerk and 2 crew guys. I think that was about it. Well, actually, we had a decent police department in the 70s, and they were all people that lived here in town. And I think the worst things that would happen then is tourists coming here and going into an old house and taking all the stuff out. I remember one time when we had the antique shop, some people showed up at the antique shop and said, they had gone into the Powder Box Church, and there's so many nice antiques in there, and people owned it at the time, and are there any more places like that we could take stuff? And we said, you know what, that's private property, somebody owns that. And
did George and Ann own it?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well,
yeah. I remember telling Ann about that incident, and no, the people ended up taking the stuff back that they had gotten.
Oh well, that's
we told them.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
So, let's. So you said your first time on council is 1982.
Yeah.
And were there particular issues that inspired you to run for council, or just in general you wanted to support, be part of?
Just be part of the town.
Yeah. What issues
water, sewer.
Yeah, what was preeminent then in terms of what we got to deal with?
Well, nobody had done an audit. A lot of the old timers were not liking the hippies getting on the council and screaming about audits, audits, audits. Joe Marini and Steve Stevenson and
Things were a
I think
little
it was
loose
Tony
before
was.
you.
Well,
I mean,
the budget for the town was something like $170,000
for the year.
for the entire town.
Yeah.
To do everything, and just trying to make it work. Trying to raise money for the fire department. I mean, at that time, and for a long time, it was just all volunteer. Tried to make sure that the fire department had enough money to operate, and we could pay cops. And,
so you had to start thinking about taxes and things like that.
Just trying to figure out how we could pay to do
Where the
some
money would come from.
improvements. Yeah. Sewer lines were bad, water lines were bad. We needed new, fire lines for the regulators. I remember Ed Cooper getting lifted off the ground by a fire hose down in the gulch because the pressure was so high. It was on the end of the hose. And it was like 100 psi or something, and just all of a sudden when they turned the water on, he's in the air.
Yeah. Well, so.
But yeah, no.
Yeah, so you gotta find clever ways to
raise money.
Raise money.
Yeah.
And I'm sure most of you guys, taxes was kind of a scary thing, but how else are you gonna do it?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of money coming in from sales tax. There wasn't a whole lot of money coming in from property tax. I mean, I'm sure probably most people's property tax was, maybe $24 a year. Or
Yeah, well, that must have been a tough issue to raise because, considering the character of the community, which was a lot more free form and hippie, for lack of a better word, and now we're starting to get real. And
we weren't really talking about raising sales taxes or property taxes back then.
You're trying to find other ways.
Yeah, we started looking for grants.
Okay.
We had a lot of volunteer labor. Because there were only 2 crew guys, we'd just go rouse people out in the community. We need to go put some baling wire and inner tubes on some water lines. So after I got off the council, that was another thing I did, was worked for $6 an hour when they needed somebody on the crew.
Okay.
To do different jobs.
So you just did one term?
I did one term, and then I think I got on planning and zoning. Yeah, I just felt like I wanted to do other things and not necessarily continue being on the council at the time. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's where I want to be up front. I'd rather be behind the scenes doing, I don't know, I've always enjoyed physical labor, and Guacamole Joe and Dave Levesque and I dug all the wrong rock out of the trickling filter at the sewer plant one time, which was an interesting job. We had rock up along, because it's fairly deep. We had rock set up along the side, so when the trickling filter with the sewage would spray in there, we could hear it coming on and would run up the rocks and get out of it. And Guacamole got sprayed once. He didn't make it out.
So this was now we have kind of a recycling or a system.
So wetlands?
Yes.
Yeah.
But this was before that.
Oh, way before. I
that.
think the sewer treatment plant dated back to the turn of the century.
I'm trying to find my own courage to go down and do that. Holy cow.
But, we were out of compliance in a lot of areas. And I know one time the water leaks were so bad that water had to be trucked into town. I think that was when Richard was, that might have been when he was on the council or mayor and still had his woodworking shop where Grapes is now.
Yeah, I think I have that story on tape of, Richard's already said it, so I'm not going to bust him. Well, he was working in his shop and he said he was tripping. He was so high on LSD, and he got the call that the water had stopped, and he had to go deal with it. And he did.
I'm sure
He got it together,
I'm sure
and he went and figured it
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, I prefer hands-on stuff, and that's when I started realizing how much work this town needed if it was going to function properly. And I used to visit sewer treatment plants when I was in high school because I was interested in
That's obscure. How does this work?
and the water system just was totally intriguing to me. I mean, I used to see parts of it, and springs. I never took water when I go out riding because I knew where the springs are, and that's another pet peeve is how water's drying up all over the place, and so it was a huge concern seeing water leaking down the hill, and that was really important to me to see water lines being fixed.
Yeah. So you got away from council for a few years, but you did get back on.
In '98, I think it was. I had stayed on planning and zoning and board of adjustment, and because I just always felt like if the town was going to raise money from tourist tax dollars, that we had to maintain the historic character of the town. And that's kind of been, I know, some people would rather not have any rules and regulations, but fire safety being a big one. I thought that you can't build a house out of something burnable right up next to somebody else's house that's going to burn.
Right.
And just so we needed to have a few rules and regulations that we could agree on, hopefully. So I stayed involved in that, and I decided to get back on the council when a certain person, I think he quit.
He filled the empty seat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I decided to continue to run because I kept seeing that more things needed to be done. At that time, we didn't have a manager, we had commissioners, and I was the water and sewer commissioner through a lot of that, and helped write grants and things like that because there was nobody to write grants.
So early on, when you first joined council and were on the other boards, the phrase came to my mind that you were one of the handmaidens to the town maturing, in a sense. Who else would you say were instrumental in that?
Oh boy, a lot of people. Just a lot. Richard, Dave Hall, Phil Tovry. I mean, the people that got the fire department being more professional. Who else? I mean, there were so many people. Ray Rantapa and Bassett. Jim Kinsella was the mayor when I was on the council. Susan Dowling was on the council. Richard Flagg was on the council. Louis Martinez. He was the mayor after I. His son John Martinez lives here in town still. He passed away, I think, probably early 90s.
Okay.
He, maybe it was 80s. Might have been 80s.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop on my thread that I want to continue with your current interest in politics and the growth of the town and all that, but I want to back up before we get too far ahead in time and ask you about some of the color of the town when you first got here and any stories that stick in your mind.
Oh boy.
That you want to share.
Well, I remember the cowboys in the Verde Valley used to have fun coming to beat up the hippies in the spirit room, and when the hippies would go to the bars in the Verde Valley, the same things would happen. I think Jim Rome and Craig McLean and some of the other people were
Oh, no
involved.
kidding. They were looking for trouble a little bit, huh? I hadn't heard of
Yeah,
that.
they'd like to go play pool at Bowlers or something like that and get into a little trouble. I felt like when we first came here that possibly the town was a little more diverse and accepting of diversity than it maybe appears to be now.
In what sense?
People just being a lot more colorful. I mean, as I remember, Priscilla looked like she could have been a gypsy coming in, in one of the
To
boats in
Ellis
Ellis Island. Oh, her jewelry. I mean, she was just a gorgeous woman. And just the clothing that people would wear, it was, I don't know, it was just different. I think there were a lot more diverse ethnicity people here when I came here. There was still a lot of Hispanic people here. I mean, I'd say
Right.
probably.
Mostly left over from the mine, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah, Roberto told me a bit about that.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and just wonderful people. And the people that were coming here, I just, I don't know, just more acceptance of differences of lifestyles maybe, and in some ways it got more conservative over the years, and I don't know why. I think personally, I think a lot of it's money and conservatism, because poor people can't buy a house in this town, and that was one of the nice things about the town then, is that you could afford to buy a fixer-upper. Now a fixer-upper is $400,000 or something like that, and you still got to work on it. Whereas
You
back
can get it
then,
for
$5,000,
$1,000,
$500, yeah. And it does change maybe the people that can buy here and be here. Right. I mean, I like to see young people who care about the town come here, but it's hard anymore.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad. I would like to see a diverse population stay here.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump back ahead of that, but I wanted to go back into the color a little bit. Did you partake of any of the potlucks and that sort of community activity?
Absolutely.
Any stories about those?
I just remember one time being in a potluck at Fern's early on, and musicians. I mean, there were a lot of fabulous musicians in town. Being in a potluck down there, and Fern had a huge wash tub full of, I can't remember what was all in the punch, but there was fruit floating in the punch. And there may have been, I know there was a lot of booze in the punch, but I think there may have been other things like psychedelics in the punch or
Some
something.
sparkle?
I do remember the kids eating the fruit out of the punch and running around all over it, just being little wild kids. And I remember that happening at other potlucks in town, and I wonder why I'm feeling so funny right now. I guess, I don't know, I've always been kind of somebody on the sidelines, quietly sat there and observed, and so it was entertaining to watch.
I'm sure.
And no judgment, it was just fun. It
Yeah.
was fun. I mean, the music, the food, the family feel, it was really fabulous. And peyote in the early days, I remember people would show up at the post office with burlap sacks of peyote, and people, oh, do you want some? And it was different. I think that's partly what scared the old timers.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Al Palmieri and I, when I was on the council, finding letters that went back and forth from the Jerome Council in the late 60s to the Flagstaff Council. All these long-haired hippies moved here. What do we do about them? Because Flagstaff was having the same issues, and this back and forth, and Flagstaff telling the Jerome people what they had done to get rid of them or keep them out.
Gosh.
So that was. I hope those
Kept
letters
us.
were in the safe.
Yeah.
And I hope that they've been saved.
Man, they
'Cause no, people were afraid. They really were afraid.
It was literally an invasion from their
It was.
perspective.
It was. And maybe like now the old hippies think, oh, we have an invasion of millionaires. I don't know. They're ruining the town.
Tables have turned. Call Flagstaff. What do we do?
We want to keep the working folk here.
Right. Well, if there's any other colorful memories of that time, maybe we can fit them in now, and if not, maybe we could switch gears and go back to.
Yeah, offhand. I can't think of anything.
Okay. Well,
without
something comes-
incriminating someone or another, which.
You're not the first one who's left names unmentioned.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
Well, let's jump ahead to where you were headed before I interrupted you to take a time travel back about the character and how things are changing, and what your and maybe include what your involvement is in the political field or the background, as you have said, and just some thoughts on that if you want. Kind of put you on the spot, didn't I?
I just worry about primary thing being growth and money, changing the character of the town. I mean, one of the things that I felt like, because the town was still kind of brown and barren when I moved here in the early 70s. And I'm sure probably somebody's talked about the town being reseeded with paradise trees to keep greenery. And it also kept the soil from sliding down the mountain. And vegetation in the root system is good. And I've always been somebody that appreciated nature and what nature does to benefit people. And I thought it was kind of something that came along with the people that moved here to regreen the town and take back what the smelter and the mining had done. And I think that caring for nature and replacing what greed and money had done to the town through mining and extraction and just kind of raping, pillaging, plundering had done to the town, that people had more thought about sustainability. And that's always been an issue with me, and with the growth comes the concern about sustainability, because I see the whole state and possibly here everybody cares about growth money. You don't grow, you die, which I don't think is true. I think you get better, not bigger necessarily, and that you can have a viable community without just growing and changing out of proportion to what it was. And I like innovation, but at the same time, you don't invite 100 people to a party when you only have one beer. I mean, you can, but
It's going to be some trouble.
whoever has the most money wins.
Or a really lousy party.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hope that we can keep the town so that a diverse population, like during mining days, I mean, there were the mining barons, and then there were the people that worked hard, and I sort of saw that as it was the people that stayed here that worked hard and would like to keep the hardworking people being able to live here, and because I think they're the ones that care about the town and not just care about extraction of wealth.
Right.
And that family and community is more important than owning 10 houses and not living here.
Yeah. Do you think there's any defense?
I really don't know. I hope there is. I'm not sure what it is in this climate of me, more. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I hope there is.
Like I told you, this project we're partaking in right now is one of the few ideas I've come up with is to keep the stories alive.
Get to know your neighbor, care about your neighbor. I mean, I don't know. That's to me is one of the things I love the most about the town is even if maybe you don't like your neighbor, you're a Democrat and they're a Republican or whatever, that, you know, if they need help, you're going to be there to help them. And I love that about the town. And
yeah, me too.
that's what I don't like about, I lived in the Chicago area for 6 years and I loved it, but the anonymity and, you know, people walk by some horrible thing they see happening and don't care.
Right.
I don't like that.
Yeah, me either.
And that's what I like about the town.
Yeah. I'll have to say, well, I've been here 25 years. In spite of some of the character differences, the people who have come here in recent years, most of them seem to like that aspect of Jerome, and I've become friends with some of the more recent people who probably aren't starving artists, but definitely not. They've been friendly and want to be part of that type of community.
I love that.
I think it's still.
Yeah.
I think that inclination is still alive.
Oh, absolutely. No, I love it that there are people that care about the town, and I guess I just...
Some of them want to come in and fix everything
Yeah,
right away.
I know.
But that's understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I do like it when people will actually take a good look at what needs to be fixed before they come in and say, oh, well, I know that needs to be fixed. Well, maybe there's something more important that needs to be fixed.
Right.
Just, well, it's like we're going to wait until you've been here a couple of years and see what you do. But no, I do welcome newcomers. And I mean, I've worked in a business in town and I love talking to people, and I also love going out in nature and not being around people too, but no, and I think it's wonderful that people come here and want to get involved and care about the town because that's what it's going to take. Yeah. I also love that the young people that are here in town are becoming involved and being on the council, and newcomers. I mean, we have somebody new. It's only been here a couple of years and he's great.
Yep.
And the young women that are on the council are great. And yay!
They're going for it.
Yay!
But they're doing something.
I know.
Yeah. Well, so you're still involved in water issues and politics a little bit, huh? You know, you haven't been on council for a while, but you've always kept your eyes and ears open about the water issues in town. Do you have anything you want to share with the future Jeromans about that issue?
Well, everybody says, oh, we need a backup plan for water up here because the water comes out of springs and it fluctuates. Sometimes if we have good snowfall on the mountain, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's mostly the snow during the winter that percolates through the ground and into the springs, and that's where our water comes from. That because we're not pumping groundwater out of a well and can pump that aquifer dry, that we need to find a backup plan. But I don't really know what that backup plan would be unless we're trucking water in from somewhere, or we're helping a community down in the valley continue to dry up an aquifer. I mean, I guess we could be just like the native peoples that were here. When their water dries up, we just move on somewhere else. But I like to think we can be sustainable and not grow beyond the water that we have, because it is finite. And when you start pumping out of the ground and lowering water tables, pretty soon you dry things up. and
Yeah.
you don't have any water
No time
anymore.
for it to replenish.
You know, it's like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and
Yeah, borrowing
I
from
don't
the
know,
future.
maybe that's okay. I don't know. Some people would think that's okay, I think, but I'd like to think that we can live within our means and that you know, we can use less, but then if we can't water our fruit trees, and that's the one thing, there were fruit trees left over from the town regenerating, and I think the people in the that lived here before had little fruit trees, apricots and certain peaches.
Yeah, peaches.
Those trees seem to do well here, and there are some old apple trees that date way back that are along the overflow ditch. I don't know if you know where they are, but
No, tell
they're
me.
probably well, they're on someone's property now. But I like to think that we could be sustainable up here and actually have food and take care of ourselves. So I don't think it's a terrible thing to water some plants outside and keep the birds living in the trees. And I'm afraid that if we don't use a little bit of that water that we have when we have it to water the trees that we have, that if we look like it did when the smelter was going, that anytime it rains, Jerome's going to be down the mountain.
Right, including buildings.
Yeah, I mean, you see that. I mean, that's a fascinating thing to me when you look at old photos from turn of the century, 1930, that you see how much the topography has changed. Oh, that soil's down here now. Oh, there's a wash there now. Or there was a mudslide and that building's gone.
Yeah. Well, Jane, when you reflected, when I asked you to come over here, is there anything we haven't touched on that you thought you wanted to bring up, share? Oh, that's right, you had a list.
I think, Petra and Francisco Lomeli that had the little grocery store next
let's
to
hear.
Fern's. That was only here for maybe a year after I came here, but they were, just what wonderful people they were.
Were they left over from the mining days?
Oh yeah, and I mean so many. Rodriguez family, Hawkes family. Well, the Lozanos were a big family. Sandovals. I'm forgetting a lot of the names. Of course, the tamale ladies.
Yeah.
There were just a lot of wonderful people that I just miss dearly that were here then, and it was just different. They all knew each other and were welcoming. I remember having New Year's Day menudo with Francisco and Petra and eating menudo for the first time.
Yeah.
That was...
That points out something to me, because I don't have that context, connection to the mining days that you had when you came here earlier. That would definitely change the character.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the stories, Laura Williams' brother, Harold Metzler, used to come into the pottery shop and sit in front of the wood stove and smoke his Pall Malls, and his fingers were all yellow, and tell stories of working in the mine and all the gory mining accidents. And sometimes tourists would be in there when he was talking about accidents that happened and scare them away because they were so gory. But just hearing Ruth Cantrell, I used to go visit Ruth Cantrell and Jimmy Thomas, who had both been teachers here back in the day, and just listening to the stories. And John and Mary Dempsey were friends with a lot of the old timers too, and introduced us to. We used to get together in the kitchen there and visit with the people they knew, and I just loved the history and the people and all those people, how much they cared about each other too, and the family feeling they had, that especially the people that stayed, because a lot of the people that were here when the mine closed left and went away, but the diehards stayed, and,
and some of
Mickey
them,
Peterson and
right. Well, some of them couldn't. I mean, they'd lost their job.
Oh yeah.
Who was going to buy a house?
Yeah.
So you kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Duke and Dorothy, and how Duke had horses. Where the big parking lot is now was a horse corral for Duke's horses, and he used to take the kids here in town that are now in their 40s and 50s, but they were little kids then. Used to take them horseback riding, and how much they loved him.
Yeah. Did you ever have any kids? Do you?
No,
Okay.
no, but I kind of. I used to take some of the kids horseback riding myself on my horses. Taught a few kids to ride, and adult friends to ride too. I had a trail riding business here for a short time.
Oh, no kidding.
I had my horses and trail riding business below the House of Joy. I had bought a couple lots down there that actually. Hunter's house and Jay's house are on the lots that I own, but that's where my horses were.
Okay. I miss seeing you ride around. It brings back some of that
Too much traffic.
old-time feeling.
Oh yeah, too
Yeah.
many cars. I mean, I do it early in the morning when I know nobody's in town. Once in a while, I'll go
You're
through
welcome to
town.
Clip Clop down East
Yeah.
Avenue anytime. I
Yeah.
love the sound.
No, that was really the mining company. It was Phelps Dodge then used to let me take people on their property, and I would take people on tours of the old mining stuff and point things out. And also would take them on parts of the old trail. Well, I used to ride with Dave Perkins, and he used to point out stuff to me when we were riding on top of Mingus or down below, and I used to clear out some of the trails that were part of the old trail that came over from Prescott. Were part of the wagon road and the 3-day trip, and there were a couple of stage stops on the way, and I would take people to the stage stops.
I had
And
no
just
idea.
point out a lot of the mining history, because there's a lot of mining history in the mountains too. And then I guess part of me thought that, some of this stuff, and then the new mining company came and they don't want people on their property, liability, so I couldn't do it anymore anyway, and insurance for the horses was getting to be unaffordable. And then I thought, some of these places are so fragile that you don't want a whole lot of people knowing about them. The places get loved to death. And one of the places, there was an old cemetery from the late 1800s that occasionally I would show people if I felt like they could be trusted, but and not on my part because I showed them to people, but other people knew. Gravestones started disappearing, and same thing with the cemetery here. And
Yeah.
to me, that's really sad that people can't leave stuff alone and just appreciate it for history.
Yeah. Why they have to have it themselves?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Or vandalize it or whatever they do. I mean, I saw that with the old stage stop that had the stone house on it and the old corrals. Well, people went camping there and took all the old corrals down and burned them for firewood and removed the stone house that was there to take stones home to their own yards, and so that's mostly gone.
Those stories disappoint me in,
I know,
in humanity.
I know.
Well, anything else on your list that we missed?
Oh, I guess Verde Valley Art Gallery was a really cool thing.
How long was that in business?
The Historical Society Board, I believe, decided that, there was a woman that was the director there that bankrupted the Verde Valley Artists, and that was kind of when it went defunct. And I think
But it was around for 5 or 6 years, I believe?
it went into the 80s.
Huh?
It did, and
And you said it started in the 60s.
yeah, and it was a place that had shows from all over the place. Great artists. I'm not thinking of the names now. They had paintings from a guy that did paintings of Jerome in the 30s and
You're
a lot
thinking
of
Lou Davis?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had paintings from him.
Wow, he's great.
Frank Ebert. Oh, there were a lot of good artists back
Wow,
then,
that's-
but it was kind of a cooperative, and then they had a little gift shop in the front, and the gift shop and that's what I worked in.
But it was paintings, jewelry, sculpture,
Yeah, they would have
everything?
different shows that would be up for a month or more, and invite artists from all over the state. And they had plays in there, and it was just a really fun gathering of people.
The openings
The
were
openings for that, very well attended. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it was a really fun thing.
Oh,
And
cool.
a lot of good artists and artists that you wouldn't get to see normally, that shows that would come in. Susan Dowling was a big part of that. Pat Jacobson,
Okay.
another friend of mine, Joe Dow French,
Oh, I haven't heard his name.
a woman,
Oh, excuse me.
Jody.
Oh,
It was Jody
Jo
when
Dow.
I met her. Yeah,
Okay.
Joe Dow. Yeah, it was fun back then, and it was really sad to see that go. But now the art cooperative has kind of replaced that, and I really like to support the arts in the town too, because I know there've been controversy over that we're subsidizing the artists, but I think the artists are a big part of the town because
Yeah.
creative ways of looking at how we're going to manage things is a good thing.
Yeah, God forbid we do that when,
Yeah,
when things
yeah.
have gotten so
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, no.
So,
No, I like it because that is the one thing that I said when I first came here. There were a lot of really good artists here, and artists are less likely to be able to afford a storefront and have a gallery in there. So I really like supporting the Verde Valley or the art co-op, Jerome
Yeah.
Art Co-op.
yeah. Well,
Because we need to keep those colorful characters and
Don't we?
musicians and writers.
yeah,
and
like us.
jewelers. Yes.
Well, I'm down with that.
No, I just the creativity, and that's what I saw from mining days. The creativity of the people that built the houses and how they built the houses, and that creativity
definitely were
still
creative.
exists. I mean, you don't come in and bulldoze something flat. You work with the hillside.
With what you got.
Yeah.
Well, when I work on my house, I discover just how creative they were.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a little hole there. I'm going to take a piece of metal from a can and nail that up over the hole.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
like that. The funkiness. I always want to keep the funkiness of the town because I think that's charming.
Yeah, me too. I like my funky old house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you.
I don't really. Yeah.
Did we come to the end?
Winifred Foster was one of the. There were a group of older people that had come here in the '60s because they found it affordable, and they were characters, and
It was a real hideout back then.
it was. Winifred Foster was one of those. She'd been a nurse in World War One, and she had Foster's Folly. It was the blue and white house across from the Methodist Church.
Okay.
She drove a 1953 Chevy station wagon. It was a dark, like a forest green, and she was a tiny woman, but a really tough woman. She'd sit there and smoke and talk to you, and had all kinds of stories of her own, although she was a newcomer. But she started smoking Spud cigarettes, which were a menthol cigarette when Spud, yes.
What a name.
When she was 14 years old, she said, and she was almost 90 when she was in her 80s, and still just a character. But when she'd drive down the street, her head wouldn't stick up over the steering wheel. So there goes Winifred's car. And Ruth Cantrell in her, I think it was a 1950 red Chevy, and she'd pull up in front of Paul and Jerry's and honk, and they'd know to take her a bottle of wine out to her car because it was too hard for her to get in and out her car. Ruth was great. She was really welcoming and had old photos and pictures of what she lived out on the other side of Sunshine Hill, and had pictures of the houses that were over there. Of course, you couldn't see the houses for the smelter smoke, but
Right.
I just miss all those old stories, and there are a few old timers left that have them, but a
Yeah.
lot of them are gone.
Yeah. I'll ask you when we're done for some names if you can think of some.
Oh, that was the other thing. Mickey Peterson and I, some time ago when Mickey was still around, we used to just tisk about Jerome being a ghost town, nobody lived here, 50 people lived here. So we named all the names of the families that were here and counted around 212, that it never got below 212 people. And I had the list of the family names.
Well, that's a number that changes with every interview. When you came here in 1972, do you know what the population
It
was?
was a couple hundred people.
Just a couple hundred.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have said, I thought 400, like it is now.
No,
And I don't think
no,
it was.
no. It
Yeah.
was, 200 and something.
Okay.
I mean,
We'll get an average of
yeah,
what everybody says. Who
Mickey
remembers.
and I think decided that it really never got below 200 people.
Okay, because the legend is it went down to 20 people.
No,
I don't think it was that.
because we counted the families.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you think? Do you think we?
I think so.
In a certain respect, I don't know what to ask, so I'll let you volunteer if you think there's anything else. Other than that, I have my fame. Oh, go ahead.
I'll think of it when I'm.
After you've left.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I think we captured a lot of good stuff. And I do have one sort of cliched question that I ask everyone, so I'll ask you too. If you could put a message in a bottle to Jeromans 50 years in the future, what would you say to them? What would you put in the bottle?
Oh boy. Love and take care of your community and preserve history and keep the creative forces going to protect the uniqueness of the town.
Okay. Thanks for indulging. All right. Well, Jane, thank you so much for coming today. I actually not only got an interview, but I also got to know you better too,
No.
which has been wonderful. So, say bye.
It wasn't so bad.
See.